以前人家问我妈妈你是做什么工？我妈妈不好意思，这个工作都没有人做的哈。
I'm Tze Yong and I'm the 4th generation apprentice and business owner at Tian Buddha Shop. We are 4th generation heritage business, probably one of the oldest heritage businesses in Singapore. We are this year 127 years old. We handcraft Taoist and Buddhist wooden statues. Some of these techniques originate from the early Qing dynasty. There's probably about 500 to 600 statues in this space. A lot of them are representations of flawed divinity. They have committed huge mistakes, yet they overcame it. So it is for this reason that people have decided to worship them. In Taoism, there isn't like a pope, there isn't like a Vatican. It's not top down. It is very ground up. So the truths and the stories come from everywhere. So there are always very different versions of a story. They are kind of like all specialists. The reason why there's so many of them is because they are all kind of specialists. There is a deity for childbirth. If you're pregnant and you're expecting your child, there is a deity just to make sure that you have a successful childbirth.
我18岁结婚了，就来这边我先生的家，他做工，我坐在旁边看他做啦，买家徽还是买什么东西，我就拿来做了，每天坐在身边看哦。
父亲他们做这样看，没有他只讲我们这样看，主要是看呐，你要看比较重要。
I grew up in this shop. As a preschooler, I was sitting on a desk after school doing my homework. My dad, my grandmother, my grandfather run this place. So I used to come in often. But I never really thought about the idea of working in the shop. And there was never any pressure at all. There was zero. But the shop was always at the back of my mind because as my dad and my grandma get older, the question is, what's going to happen with this shop, right? Literally, it will just end. So it's literally in our hands. If you don't do anything, one day the shop closes. It is as clear as a day. So this is the future that I saw, and I thought, hey, maybe I'm not so sure what is my 5-year strategic plan. I have none of that. I have no clue what the future is going to hold. Then I started to spend time in the shop once a week or once every 2 weeks. After work, I will come down to the shop to start to learn from my dad.
这个因为它是变旧的，它的漆有一处这样嘛，你看才跟它打底这样。人这个有裂，我们就跟它补了。
这个要这个缩到一条，就用这剪了就连在互相。
为什么这个有洞？
太久了，通通这子长的，不是变成这样子。
So after about 2 years of doing that, I realized that, wow, this is not going to get us anywhere. I'm going to run out of time. About 2 years ago, at the time I was working as a CEO of a charity, I left the job so that I can have a 4-day work week at a different job and free up 1 day, which I can spend here. I don't get paid for the 1 day. I'm an apprentice here. I swap my MacBook for bamboo sticks. Time passes very slowly. Instead of many different chrome tabs, I'm looking at a wooden statue for the 8 hours. We are living in a world where knowledge is increasingly commonplace. And in this future, I think cultural capital is the thing that sets people apart. Do you know culture? Do you live in a certain cultivated way? Do you know literature? Do you know religion, philosophy? So I read a book once, right, that spoke about the history of craft in human civilization. The point that the author was making, right, is that craft is what defined the beginning of human civilization. We need to be cautious about reinventing it too quickly. The moment it changes, you cannot turn back the clock. It is important to first pause and look at it for what it is and forget about our own aesthetics. The aesthetic here is what it is and it is valuable in of itself. It's very easy to think about how to reinvent it. It's much harder to say, how can I learn to do it the way it has been for 100 years? If you don't do that, right, all the innovation is hollow. There isn't a substance, there isn't a foundation and an anchor or a reference point to it. I think design plays a very important role in the modernizing of this craft. The businesses die because there's no skills transfer, not because there is no good design.
以前人家问我妈妈你是做什么工？我妈妈不好意思，这个工作都没有人做的哈。
Heritage as we know of today was not heritage back then. When you ask my grandma, right, to talk about her work, she doesn't see it as heritage. It's just a way to feed my family of 7 kids. It's only heritage today because everyone else has disappeared. If today there were 1,000 other shops like us, then we're not heritage business, but the work that we do is still the same. Hearing of Crafty Crafty is encouragement that there are people out there who actually value the work that we do, the place that we have in the community. Sometimes people don't realize that when you're a craftsman, you can get pretty lonely because conversations are very transactional and you only deal with your customers, you see. But when you have people like, you guys coming aboard and saying, hey, can you share your story with us? And then it makes us feel like we're part of something bigger. And it's a very big encouragement and it motivates us to go on this hard road of preserving the craft.